What's up, guys? Your tour guide here, and I'm streaming via via what's this called? StreamYard. It's been a while since I streamed via StreamYard, but I had technical issues last time, and I just didn't want to run into those connection issues again. So I thought I'd try this new. It's not new. I've used it before, but yeah, I just thought I'd revisit this platform, and hopefully those of you who normally catch me on my channel are able to join here as well. Just gonna wait for some people to join, but yeah, we got a pretty mellow show for you today. I hope everybody had a good week. I had a pretty busy week, getting stuff done at work, and definitely. Hey, what's up, Tyler? How you doing, man? Thanks for joining. So I had a pretty just average week, but our family is dealing with a little bit of a virus. I my it's just congestion for me, a little congestion, and occasional coughing. At first, I thought it might be allergies, but then my son came down with something, and he had like a stomach issue. He threw up at school, so he had to come home, and he's been resting the past couple days. He's feeling a lot better now, but we've been dealing with a sick child at home. So yeah, it's been just one of those interesting weeks. Sick child, busy work week. Now, in last week's, actually it wasn't last week. It was this week. I got a package from. Yeah, thanks, Tyler. It's tough to deal with a sick child, but no, he's feeling a lot better. So thanks for the concerns. So last stream, I went live, and I actually did a bunch of. I went live for about a good hour or so, but it only captured 19 minutes. Again, I had some kind of faulty connection, and it led to the video just getting cut short. So I was like 19 minutes in, and that's all that it captured on YouTube. So hopefully tonight's stream doesn't have the same issues, and we go the full length. But yeah, I unboxed a package that I got, and we'll kind of reintroduce it since I didn't get to share. The only people who got to see it were the people who were in the live stream with me, and I think even them, they had some issues because, they were like, "Oh, you're kind of cutting out," and I don't know if they saw the rest of the stream. I was just kind of going without really considering if people were watching or not. And then I realized by the end of it, I'd gotten cut off somewhere. And when I looked back at the video, it was like at the 19-minute mark, it just stopped. So the other 40 plus minutes basically got deleted. So I didn't get to share any of the stuff I covered last time. So we'll kind of cover those kinds of topics again. I was talking a lot about the economics of comics, and I won't go into my whole diatribe, but essentially, comic collectibles, there are, like our hobby, there's a marketplace because collectors want to buy specific books and have them in their collection. Now, that creates a market, that creates demand and value for certain books. But for the most part, the majority of, I would say, like, out of all the books that have been published and printed, right, you're talking about, uh, let's say less than, um, I'd say about 10%, right? Maybe less than 10% of the hobby, like what's out there in the marketplace, is um, like a key and valuable book. Like, we're only talking about a percentage of books. Um, so I'm just saying, like, don't get caught up. Kind of understand what you're willing to pay and what you value books at, and then take it down a notch, right? Don't ever go by book value. I think book value is, you should look at book value as base value. Always try to get books below book value, because at the end of the day, even book value is just an arbitrary number that someone put on there. If you truly believe, okay, that's a book I want, and I place whatever value the marketplace puts on that book, by all means, pay the market value or market price for that book. But just understand, like, as I mentioned, it's a pyramid scheme. Okay, our hobby is unfortunately a pyramid scheme where the publishers make a profit margin off of printed paper, and then the resellers, the businesses, the local comic book shops, sell them for a higher margin, and that higher margin and the amount of books printed and the amount of books sold, those kind of, that creates a little bit of data. And depending on whether it's a key issue or a key story or just a popular artist, that can add a little bit of additional value. And then you've got the whole summation of time, the history of our hobby, where the older books are, the more rare the books are, the sort of the higher value and demand that creates. So, not to say, like, every book is worthless, but please keep in mind, you know, what you bought for $20, um, at the end of the day, may not be $20 in 10 years, right? And what you pick up for maybe $2 at the end of 10 years could be a $200 book. So there's just a lot of things that are speculative. And I would say, don't treat comic books like an investment. Just enjoy the hobby, buy what you like, and pay a reasonable price, right? Comic books should not be breaking your bank. You should have money to buy comic books. That's disposable income. That's not going to affect your financial plans or anything like that. Obviously, saving, if you're in debt, saving should be your priority, not comic books. But if you have budget to spend on comic books, by all means do so. But don't put your financial future in a precarious predicament because you're prioritizing comic books over planning for your future or planning for your retirement. Okay, those things should always take priority over comic books. Okay, so let's be healthy, responsible collectors. I know it's, trust me. I feel the FOMO. I feel the desire to pick up books all the time, and I have to resist that urge. I sometimes think, oh, that's $100. Yeah, that's that's like that's a $400 book, and I'm getting it for $100. I gotta buy it. Don't kind of jump into those conclusions. Um, but at the same time, you know, uh, don't take all the fun out of this hobby. But again, you shouldn't. It's got to be a balance. Don't go over the deep end with spending, and um, like anything, moderation is key. Balance is key. Don't go overboard in this hobby. It's hard, and I think a lot of us, um, you know, can struggle with that. But hopefully, you don't uh, you don't go too crazy. All right, normally I think Miss So would join us, but I'm again streaming through Streamyard. Hopefully that didn't throw her off. Um, but absolutely couldn't agree more. You know, yeah, there's no wrong way to collect. Okay, um, and there are a lot of influencers in the community who tell you, hey, this is a hot book, or this, you should buy this. There's a lot of things based on like movies and upcoming projects that sort of drive the demand and kind of create a little FOMO for books. Please try to avoid all that. I find when you do that, you probably end up saving money. I don't think, again, I don't think anybody should be putting their, you know, financial health at risk through this hobby. So let's, you know, spend responsibly, essentially. I see a lot of people on YouTube not doing that. In fact, I've heard people, I've heard people actually taking out loans to get comic books, or putting comic books on their credit cards, and paying like interest on top of what they paid for the comic books and stuff. That that's exactly what I'm talking about in terms of being irresponsible. So don't do those kinds of things. If you have debt, focus on paying off your debt, uh, and don't make comic books a priority unless you specifically have a plan to pay off the debt and get comic books. Um, you should not be you know late on payments, um, if you have uh, essentially debt, because that's just not good. If you paid off all your debt and you weren't in debt anymore, then whatever you saved or whatever you that goes in the positive can go toward comic books. So that should be the sequence of things, not the other way around. So hopefully I get through to some of you, but there are a lot of people in the community that where I think you know they don't mind spending on comic books per month, a little more than what maybe is healthy. And I'm not going to be a judge of that. But for me personally, um, yeah, I mean, I have a very, I've been spending what, $2. What did I spend up to probably this quarter? So the first 3 months of the year, I want to say I've spent about mm, not even $20, $20 if that. Actually, no, I take that back, because I think at the beginning of the year I did spend some money. I gotta go calculate what I spent so far, but I have a very minimal budget, and if money kind of pops up where I can spend, I do definitely do spend it though. But like right now, I had $2 to my comic book budget, which I was just kind of hanging on to. And then I ended up selling some books and got 5 additional dollars. So I have $7 in my comic book budget, which I haven't spent yet. Kind of like waiting to see if I can spend a little bit more and then see where that goes. But yeah. All right. Well, we're at the point in the show where we listen to the comic book jukebox. So every week I focus on a comic book from my collecting era, um, a comic book of significance during my comic book era. So obviously, everybody's going to have their books of significance. What they read and what their memories around that. For me, I have a very limited number of titles that I read and kept up with, and and then I pair that comic book with um, a hit song during that period. What was charting, or maybe at the top of the charts. So today's book, it's actually a really great song, um, and it's a great book. So we'll show the book off, but first we're going to listen to the song here a little bit. Okay, so if you don't know that song, that is Alone by Heart. And we basically chose that song because it was one of the top charting hits during June of 1987. So let's go in the Wayback Machine, and hopefully you were alive during June of 1987. I'm a Gen Xer, so I was finishing up sixth grade uh, and getting ready to go into junior high. And so this was I've mentioned in the past couple of episodes where this was a very I guess period of transition for me, going from a little kid to adolescence. And I definitely remember having all these romantic feelings for people in my class. And then, of course, junior high is just one of those huge transitions where, you know, you start, I think, um, you start discovering your sexuality. Um, you have stronger feelings, sexual feelings for uh, the the opposite sex, and yeah, you're just going through a lot of physical and emotional uh, developments. And yeah, I would say 87, 88. Right? This was the period where that was happening very rapidly for me. And yeah, I was also very, very into comic books during this period. Um, so we're going to look at one of the books that for me was one of the key books of the period. And man, is this a great comic book! We have giant sized annual ASM, annual 21. Now this is the variant cover. The actual it had an A and B cover. The A cover is Peter Parker in a tux with MJ, and there's like a wedding background, like a cake and all that in the background. Very like wedding esque. And then the variant cover, which is the one I have here, is Peter in costume with heroes and villains in the background. Now, this cover kind of intimates that it's some kind of Marvel, hero versus villain type comic book. It's not that at all. It's actually very very tame, almost boring. It essentially is Peter just kind of like running into a little bit of a, you know, he's Spider-Man. He's running into a little bit of an issue, but then it's a big day for him, so he kind of wraps things up and proceeds to the wedding, and it's just all the people in his life that come together to celebrate this union. So Mary Jane is a very big part of this whole ceremony, but it is just kind of one of those just uh, sappy, cheesy wedding comic books. Not a lot in terms of drama happens in it. So I do not buy a lot of new comic books. You're absolutely right, Tyler. I did back in the day. I think every collector kind of goes through phases. And when I was young, yeah, new books were kind of where my focus was. And now that I'm older, it's not like I want to get new books. It's I want to go back and get the books from my era, and that's kind of where my collecting has been in recent years. So yeah, I'm all about like 90s books from my comic book collecting era, and the books from the Bronze, Silver, and Golden Age. Although Golden Age, I don't have too many books from the Golden Age. I have been picking up a lot of Silver Age books and some Bronze Age. But yeah, definitely the focus has been um, on modern, somewhat modern books and Copper Age books. So 90s and 80s books for sure. Uh, but hey, Miss So, hope you got to hear the song. Um, it was yes, it was "Alone" by Heart. And I mentioned last time I had a crush on a girl named Sarah. This was in '86. And '86 was one of those just, again, I was developing all these like romantic feelings for girls. And I mentioned, '86 was the summer of '86 was when Karate Kid came out. And, Karate Kid, sorry, excuse me, Karate Kid 2 came out. And Tamlin Tomita was the young Japanese Okinawan girl who was Ralph Macchio's love interest in that. And man, that was just a great romantic movie. And that Peter Cetera, "The Power of Love," that was like kind of in my head. And then Sarah, Starship Sarah, was a song again I had in my head while I was kind of pining for my classmate whose name was Sarah. And now we've come to the end of sixth grade, and again, Sarah goes to a different junior high, and I go to another crosstown junior high. So we're separated. So the Sarah just becomes a distant memory at this point. By June of 1987, I am focused on going to junior high. And when we get into junior high, I have uh, quite a few love interests, and we'll get into, well, and they're just interests because I never really dated in junior high, or I never got laid in junior high or anything like that. It was just all like just daydreaming and wishful thinking kind of in terms of my love life, which is fine. It's nice and innocent that way. But um, yeah, so Heart, uh, it's interesting because I don't know about the rest of the country, but Heart they're from Seattle. They're local musicians here. And prior to Heart, the real musical talent coming out of Seattle was Jimi Hendrix, right? It was Jimi Hendrix, and then Heart came along, and then the Seattle grunge scene when I'm in high school. You had Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all these like bands coming out of Seattle. But that wouldn't happen for a few more years. But Heart was huge. I mean, Heart was like playing everywhere you went during this period. They had a couple hits, Alone being I think one of their first hits, but it was a great song, and it's a great music video, and I think it's one of those songs that have stood the test of time from this period. At least it's a personal favorite of mine. I can't speak for everybody. I'm sure maybe some of you hate the song, but um, it is a classic, iconic song. So hopefully, listening to "Alone" by Heart takes you back to the June of 1987, and we're going to take a look at some movies that were talk about some movies that were a hit in June of. This is the summer of 1987. Big blockbuster year for movies. Um, in fact, I'm going to show you what was released in June of 1987. Oh, we had a lot of good. All right, so we had. Oof, this is a good one. June released Predator, Beverly Hills Cop 2, and The Untouchables. So those were some of the movies that premiered in June of '87. So we got to talk about Predator, right? The Predator is the movie of um, that. I would say the movie of that year, um, because man, you talk about uh, probably I'd say in terms of like movies, every comic book. Well, I don't want to say every, but most comic book collectors have seen is Predator, right? It's like that was a big comic book as well. That the comic book came out a little after the movie. I think the comic book came out in between the first and second movie. Um, but the popularity of the first movie had fueled a second movie, which wasn't as good. The first movie was way better. But yeah, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger starring in it. You had Carl Weathers. You had um, a lot of cool, like Jesse Ventura was in that movie, and it was just a pretty violent, gory movie. But it was also had a lot of action and suspense, and just a cool fight scene at the end. I mean, that's just like a kind of like a perfect movie for a, if you're in junior high, right? If you're in like elementary, junior high school. I did not see Predator in the theaters. I saw it at my friend Mike's house when it came out on uh, VHS. We rented the movie. We had one of those, sleepover nights with a bunch of friends and played Nintendo, had pizza, played pool, swam in his. Yeah, Mike had everything at his house. He had a swimming pool. He had like dirt bikes. He had a basketball court. He had a huge field where he could play football. Um, then he had like Nintendo. He had like a tank full of like fish eating fish. Like like you put a fish in there and it just like we'd watch it like attack fish and stuff. He just had the coolest setup. Um, Huge screen TV for that time as well. You know those like big box TVs with like the big like um, I would say it's like 2 feet of like space in the back, but a huge monitor for Nintendo. But yeah, we watched Predator on that, and man, those were good times. Those were really fun times. But yeah, that's my memory of Predator right there. And again, just one of the best, I think, movies from that year, for sure, from that summer for sure. And yeah, so hopefully, again, the wedding of Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Um, I mean, this was the moment because up to this point, Peter Parker and Mary Jane had just this long kind of relationship where they were just boyfriend and girlfriend, and Peter was always like saving her and worried about protecting her and all that. And here now they are, like he has close proximity to her, and she knows a secret. It's not like he has to like hide his identity from her. She knows, and it's kind of like it takes the title into a whole new direction because they're now like newlyweds, and a lot of different kind of characters and storylines around that, the change in their relationship, come to the fore on this title. So it was just a really cool time to be reading Spider-Man. Um, a lot of cool things happen during this period. Of course, with the advent of Venom, um, the advent of the Scarlet Spider, and you know different villains that would pop up, old and new villains that would pop up. So yeah, definitely one of those milestone issues and key moments in comic books for sure. All right, so that is that. Now I do want to show off what I got from Namyang and Ryan Odagawa. Again, I was live streaming. I know Miss So, you were there. Maybe Miss So remembers this print, but I was live streaming earlier this week and I didn't get a chance to show this off. Well, I did show it off during the live stream, but I was cut off due to like weird weak internet connections. But got this awesome signed print from Ryan Odagawa. This is X-Men homage of Jim Lee's X-Men Annual Number 1, Volume 2 of X-Men Annual Number 1. And he takes out Psylocke and adds Storm and Jean Grey and Jubilee. Awesome 90s X-Men homage there. But this is the piece I really love, and that's this incredible Psylocke print, man. Look at that. That is a cyanide to the face right there. Or cyanide to the sensitive zone. I'll just call it the sensitive zone. That is goodness right there. So thank you to Nam Young and Ryan. And another thing that got cut off last time was, The Untouchables was a good movie. Yeah. The last thing, what got cut off during my last feed was I was like thinking the community, the comic book community. I've had the good fortune of meeting a lot of great people, not only through my channel, but through this community of channels. And I've gotten, I've been fortunate to meet some people in person. There are a lot of people here who collect that aren't on YouTube, or that are just, kind of their viewers, but they don't have their own channels. So a lot of local people I've been able to connect with through the hobby, a lot of channels, collectors through channels I've been able to connect with. But yeah, I mean, I just want to kind of, again, give a shout out to some of the members. And again, I just feel very fortunate to have befriended these individuals. Um, Miss So, uh, you're definitely one of those community members. And Tyler, nice to meet you tonight. So hopefully you stop by each week, have bandwidth to stop by and check in. But yeah, Namin Hyung is definitely, the person, one of the first people I connected with, and we've met several times. And I just look to him as like an older brother who was collecting before me, and but we have the same collecting interests, and he and I have a lot in common in terms of our growing up in this country, our cultural ties, and yeah, I just really look up to him as a community member. And I will also want to recognize Ryan Odagawa. Ryan Odagawa, somebody who absolutely who Nam and Hyung kind of connected with, and we were kind of introduced to through Nam and Hyung, and we featured him as an artist on our channel. And I've uh, been really lucky to get to know him through the channel as well. And we talked about plans to meet up. So hopefully, I do go down to Southern California from time to time. So next time I'm down there, definitely expect a feed with Ryan at some point. Maybe we'll go pick up comic books or something, or I'll just interview him or something, do something interesting. But I also want to give a shout out to like Damien and Roger, Sleepy Reader and Metarog. Again, two guys who just a wealth of comic book knowledge, diehard collectors, and just again mentors in this hobby. And they really kind of like, you know they I just feel like they have been collecting for so long, and then they have so much knowledge. It's like you almost want to like model your collections after them. So they're definitely heavy influencers on me, and I'm sure a lot of you out there as well. But yeah, if they like a certain artist, or if they talk about a certain book, my ears perk up, and I'm definitely like, you know, influenced by that. Can't say that about too many other people in the community, but those two guys for sure. Um, and then there are guys like Fanboy Prime, and guys like you know Jeff, Kenny's Comic Kid, uh, two of my buds in the community. Um, and then I mean, there's just so many people to kind of mention. Um, Collectors that I've just uh, been fortunate to, you know, follow or watch their content and do stuff with. So I also want to give a shout out to guys like Ethan from Destiny City Comics, um, Russ from Mill Geek Comics, Comic Book Sensei, um, and all those guys over there at the Comic Tom 101, Fire Guy Ryan, uh, you know, just there's been so many people I've had the fortune of meeting. Alex over in Vancouver, she's a great comic book artist, and just so many like Trevor, Mike, uh, you know, Russ, Brian, LCS, E-Man. I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of people, but so many of you in the community um, have not only sustained this channel just through your um, commitment to what you guys do, Oh, Raph from Retro Comics, a new friend, somebody I've been really, I would recommend his channel. He's a deep source of collecting knowledge as well. Um, very avid, like you could tell he has just a lot of passion for the hobby as well. So when you run into guys like these, um, guys who are like collectors, collectors like yourself, um, not trying to monetize or do like you see those guys who want to monetize, who um, maybe trying to resell books and all that, um, like create some kind of business off what they do versus having a real passion for as a collector. I do nothing against comic comic Tom or these other channels, but you know those guys are um, making money off this, uh, which is great for them. But that's not why a lot of us do it. A lot of us are just doing it to really just escape, just escape and enjoy collecting and all that. So, all right, well, um, I don't have much else to share at this point. So, I guess I'll just talk about some of the stuff that's been. I mean, I'm going to talk about it again tomorrow with Jeff, my partner in crime on Saturdays. We've got a lot of topics to cover, but I think the things that are top of mind for me right now is we first of all we got some like confirmation on some upcoming projects, and I'm not going to spoil anything. So if you want to take a look at upcoming projects and things related to specifically the Avengers, there's been some new information around that. Um, Spoilers in particular. I'll let you go and find that. But it's not any new knowledge in terms of what's been specul, you know, spec upon. The speculation around Avengers and everything moving towards Secret Wars has been around Doom. Okay, Doctor Doom. So I think you know uh, you're seeing the hobby respond more strongly to some of these books now, and yeah, it's kind of fun for those of us who kind of like, yeah, I could see that book spiking, and you picked up a copy here and there. Um, Hopefully, you'll get rewarded with a big spike in demand for those books. But if not, they're just great books to have. Um, but I'm specifically referring to, uh, the uh, is it Hickman? Yeah, the Alex Ross covers, right? It's Hickman. Yeah, Hickman. Uh, I just go pick up a bunch of the Hickman Secret Wars books because that's essentially, I think, kind of where Marvel is heading. Um, and it's a good thing for the MCU for them to be, not that it's going to be like an exact model, but if it's anywhere uh, near successful, it's really solidifying the fact that, okay, we're going to have it in comic books first, and or actually I should say movies moving forward will most strongly attach to actual comic book content, right? They're going to latch on to whatever actually was written in the comic books and do some kind of mirror production of that. Because up to now, it's been kind of loosely, kind of threaded here and there, but now it's like they're going to more, I think, accurately tie into comic books. And that's what we want to see as fans. So reading these stories, right? And at some point when a project is announced, it's like sourcing it from actual material versus materials is, I think, always better for. Um, this will get more people in the comic books. It'll fuel the hobby, and the hobby needs some help right now. We've got some with inflation and the tariffs. Uh, and you see, I think, interest in comic book collecting dwindling again because of cost pressures. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of an injection of interest with the upcoming movies. I'm excited to see Fantastic Four. I'm excited to see Secret Wars, Avengers, Superman, the slate of DCU books, movies. So all of these like projects hopefully will continue to sustain the movie or sustain the hobby and generate interest in movies and this kind of content. So yeah, the Heroes variant. Well, those are fun too. Yeah, those are great. The heroes and villains variants. It's almost like you want all of them. That is definitely like, if you, I guess, if it entered your mind that because it's a lot of stuff to collect. That's a lot of stuff to collect. But if it entered your mind, if you're like wanting to like collect every single cover of that is a big lift. Considering, like those are what, $5 a pop, $5 or $6 a pop. Um, but yeah, that would be a cool thing to have. I think ultimately, over time, those are books that you can maybe get for a couple dollars, right, per book. I could see those dropping down to like dollar bin books or, like $3 books. That's something worth pursuing as a collector because, man, Ross killed it with the looks. Um, Doc Ock, the Doc Ock cover was just, I mean, if you could imagine a real life Doctor Octopus, right? That would be the guy. Uh, Ross's interpretation would be the guy, and then there's Galactus. There's all kinds of great um, uh, caricatures from that. Just spot on caricatures from that. Black Panther is really cool too. So many great covers there, but I think that I got the Doom cover from all of that. I didn't want to like do a big lift, but I did want one of those covers, and I got the Doctor Doom cover, and I think that's the one. I think um, one of the more popular ones that you want probably from that series. But yeah, that was great. Yeah. A little. So I'm just going to give you a little update on. I sent Metarog. He graciously um, agreed to take some of my comic books and clean and press and do some work on them. Now, this is something we've been doing, I'd say, over the past 3 years. Um, and he's done such good work on some of my previous books that I've sent him. And I sent him another batch, 5 books, and I think they might have arrived today. I'm just going to check. If so, we're going to probably connect at some point, and Roger's going to go over in detail like how he's going to approach each book, because every book is different, right? Every publisher is different. Every book is different in terms of the book's materials, the sizes, um, the paper quality. Uh, every book's going to have, different types of covers, uh, different ages, different, you know, aging issues. So each book presents its own set of challenges. And that's what's fun about this kind of like project. It's like Roger, kind of like a surgeon, will just go over his like plan, what he plans to do in surgery. Um, and it has to be well thought out and well, because like you can't just go in like, oh, we'll do this. And then if something goes wrong, there's no way to, there's no way to undo what you've done. So without like practice and kind of a sure methodical process, these things can kind of turn out for the worst. And that I'd hate for that to happen during when he's working on my books. But fortunately, he's done enough to where he's had success with certain techniques. But who knows? I might have sent him a book, where it presents new challenges for him, and we just don't know what the outcome will be. So whatever, again, I'm always looking to him because he always walks me through what he's going to do, like a good doctor. I'll kind of lay out the procedure, talk about the risks, and then at the end of the procedure, we'll know if it's a success or not by looking at the results. So the books are moving to the next facility. So I think we got a couple more days before he gets them. So I'll keep you attuned to that when the books arrive, and we'll definitely plan a check-in here on YouTube where he goes over the books and his plan for it again. And yeah, it's always a fun project. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for me tonight. But thanks guys for just popping in and checking in. Just enjoy this sort of like kind of unwinding on a Friday. A lot of people are streaming right now, so appreciate spending a little bit of time to pop in. And Lois Lane, yep, I sent him a Lois Lane book. That'll be in the among the things that we'll get back that have been addressed. I love that Lois Lane book, by the way. I just love that book. It's a spanking cover where Lois is spanking Super Baby. I mean, that's just can't get a better cover than something like that. So it's like a love triangle book too. Lana and Lois, they're both spanking Super Baby. Just such a great period piece. Kind of love stuff like that. Kurt Schaffenberger cover. Great book. Right. There's so many good Lois Lane books. Oh my goodness. I mean, if I were to go back in time and just have just a chunk of money, like go back in time and kind of, not that I'd give up every book that I've picked up, but if I could go back in time and kind of get all the money back that I've spent and put that money toward something specific, I'd definitely try to pick as much Lois Lane. So you know, it was just the tail end of the golden age, tail end of the golden to the right up into the bronze age of Lois Lane books. I would do that. I would do that in a heartbeat. It's such a great series. Yeah, they're just for myself. So Roger and I've talked about it. He uses like a wheat paste that can kind of seal tears and um, kind of bolster staple tears as well. And I said, use as much wheat paste as you need because these are never going to CGC or anything like that. These are just to improve the books to stay in my personal collection. So I just want them looking their tip top shape and have them looking and not breaking apart, essentially just keeping them in their pristine preserved state for as long as possible. So yeah, it's not like I'm trying to grade them, and you know these are not going to CGC at all. They're just going to stay in my collection. Yes. I'm not. I submitted books to CGC. I want to say 20 books in all, and not to say it was like a bad experience, but I think it taught me a lot about grading first and foremost. But it also taught me, you know, you don't need, if your goal is to uh, protect the books, right? Like slab them and protect them. You can do that yourself for a couple bucks. Um, and the service is really geared toward if you want to sell that book, right? It's kind of like, well, if it's a high grade book, right? And you get the validity that it's a high grade book, well, then you can probably sell it for a lot more. And really, that's if I was gonna sell my books, I'd probably go through that process. But if just gonna stay in my collection, there's no need to. Now, if you have the money, by all means, do slab away. Like if you want to slab all your entire collection, by all means, you have the freedom to do so. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money or what kind of books you should collect. But for me personally, um, I don't see the value in doing that. It's just a lot of money kind of wasted because I feel like I'm not like an exact grader, but I can tell you the difference between like a very good and a fine, or a good and a very good, right? I kind of know the differences. So in terms of like um, kind of like targeting on a specific grade, I can tell you like where my books are in terms of grading, right? Especially in the higher grades, like a near mint book. Um, like what separates a near mint and very fine. It's a little bit, it's just a couple of it really is just the visual, like you can see the flaws here but otherwise a perfect book versus this is near flawless, right? So um, I think if you can do that for yourself as a grader, then you really got to just like at the end of the day, it's like I just want to see the label and the grade, and it really is just kind of like a product at the end of the day, right? It's like I have my comic book and I want to put it in the CGC slab and that's the collectible right there, the CGC collectible. And I just don't, you know, I did it, didn't really, it didn't, I don't see the point of doing it moving forward. Now, on some of the higher, older books of higher grade, I may slab them, but I don't think I'll go the CGC route. I'll probably do the CBCS route just because it's, the same, essentially the same service. I think the slabs are better quality, and I just they're just no like just questionable like practices being done at CBCS versus CGC. We just had a lot of questionable things, kind of like you know just conflicts of interest in terms of grading and pricing their service towards higher end books, right? So those are the things that bug me about CGC. But yeah, yeah, I think when I initially got into the whole what books to submit, they were definitely like my just the darlings of my collection at the time. A lot of key books. I had a couple Eric Larson, Spider-Man books that I wanted to just have slabbed, right? So, it really is like at the end of the day, like what you want in terms of the condition. The condition is the first and foremost thing. You shouldn't, unless it's like a really important book to you, but the whole purpose of slabbing is to like try to get a 9.8 or try to get like high grades out of it. I hate seeing people submit like a just like an average book, right? Just a common. Let's just call it what it is. It's a common. It's a $3 book. It's a sentimental favorite for them, but then it comes back like a 7.5 or like an 8.0, and you just feel you just feel for like you could have probably, if you were patient enough, you could have probably hunted for one that was in near mint and submitted that versus the one in your personal collection, because it just kind of defeats the purpose, right? If it comes back like a 7.5 and it's a comment. So hopefully that didn't happen to you, Tyler, but I'm just saying, like, I see it in the community happen. And it happened to me a couple times as well. It's like you kind of send it in thinking it's going to come back a 9 or an 8.5 at least, and it comes back lower, and you don't really see what was the issue. Um, and I guess that's why CGC has their little process that does catch those like flaws or whatever. But at the end of the day, it didn't make me feel good. I was just like, I would have been just better off like under the assumption that this is what I think the grade is and keeping it that way without having the plastic around it. So it is what it is. Yeah, 90 Superman. Nice. I like you, Tyler. 90 Superman stuff is grade worthy. I gotta. Hopefully they came back high grades, but if not, it's all good. You know, 90 Superman is the bomb. Some 90s Batmans, yeah. People forget. Late 80s, 90s Batman was just, I think, the peak. You could call it like the peak Batman stories. Those Chuck Dixon Batman stories were just incredible. All right, well, yeah, thanks, Tyler, for stopping by. Miss So, hope you're having a nice dinner or something, and we'll see the rest of you next time. So, thanks. Peace out.